Hello, welcome back to Kernel of Truth's Miniature Issues. In this video, I finally get round to building the Waterwheel, and I'll take you through the steps of how this was constructed entirely by hand using simple materials. The Waterwheel starts life on a sheet of plastic. I'm carefully measuring out a grid, and into this grid I'm going to start construction of the various parts of the wheel. Being a precise piece of machinery, I can't approach this with the same random approach that I take to some of my buildings. It needs to be carefully plotted. I'm constructing the two wheels of the Waterwheel at the same time. First by planning out two circles, and then by dissecting them into 6 sections. This will give me the spokes of the wheel. Within the main circles, I'm drawing smaller circles to give me my framework. And then alongside each spoke, I'm drawing parallel lines to give me the width of the iron itself. A small central circle, into which I'm cutting a square for the square shaft that will drive the wheel. Now quickly check that it's a good fit for my basswood. Now to cut out the wheels. I'm starting from the inside out to make it easier to handle. The wheels are still on their sheet of plastic. This is a process where you need to be slow and careful. Working the way through with the knife rather than trying to do it all in one cut is a good idea. Also, don't be tempted to pull away sections. Always cut them away until they're completely free. It's easy to tear the plastic at this stage and you'll have to start all over again. Now some plastic strips. These are being glued into place using liquid polystyrene cement over the spokes. This will give me the depth that I want. And with them in place, it's time to cut out the wheel. Again, slow and careful. When working like this, you're working with the tip of your knife quite a lot. Check regularly to make sure it hasn't snapped off. It's easy to do. You need a good sharp point. Now a smaller circle is laid over the top of the center of the wheel. By building the wheel up in this manner, I get a nice 3-dimensional effect. It's machinery, it shouldn't look completely flat. Checking for scale against the building. Now I've divided the wheel further to a total of 36 pieces. This is where the blades of the wheel will sit. On the outside of each wheel is a small plastic strip. Again, this adds to the machinery and will mark where I need to be putting my blades. I'm adding some detail now with some plastic rivets. These are cut from a rod and carefully glued in place. Now for the shaft. I've rounded off the end and I'm putting some strips of paper around, which will be painted to look like iron brackets. Just working it around to the thickness that I want. And slide the first piece of wheel into place. More paper immediately behind the first wheel, and another strip just before putting on the second. On it goes. If you'd like to see more of the techniques and materials that I've used in building Under Crag City, please subscribe and check out all of my earlier videos. Throughout the process of creating this city, everything is done by hand with cheap materials and simple techniques. There is no 3D printing. Anyway, back to the wheel. I'll start the painting process with a black undercoat on all of the iron. I'm not trying to do it all in one coat, it's quite thin and wishy-washy. Putting it on too thickly would just obscure the detail and spoil all of my hard work. Again, checking for scale. It's nice to do this kind of thing from time to time, keeps the imagination going. With the black finished, I'm dry brushing with silver, quite heavily. At this point it doesn't need to look very realistic, I just want a metallic sheen. Now I'm lightly applying some rust ink. I've cut a strip of basswood, not balsa wood. This is stronger and more rigid than balsa and will make construction of the wheel easier. It will also reduce the likelihood of damage later on. Now to start installing 36 identical blades. If my wheels are accurate, this should all go fairly well. Blobs of PVA hold the blades in place, and I get the first 6 on the main spokes in place first. I'm going to let these dry before continuing. Now for the slightly painstaking process of installing the remaining 30 blades. I'm lining them up by eye. It's a little bit tricky. But patience pays off in the end. Now to paint them. I'm applying neat brown ink straight onto the blades with no undercoat. I don't want to spoil the black that I put on the ironwork. Looking good so far. The end of the wheel will need to be supported, so I'm creating a timber framework, heavy looking timbers with a notch cut into the top one for the wheel to sit in. This is the same 4mm square basswood that I used for the shaft of the wheel. I'm rounding off the corners as I don't want it to look too crisp, and it helps create definition between the separate pieces. Gluing them together in a stack. I'm just working out the height everything needs to sit at. A piece of black foam board with the paper peeled off. And I'll hand draw stonework into this, as I do for all of my walls and streets. It's almost time to replace this pencil. Not forgetting the details at the end. And shaping it into a more interesting piece. Now thin strips of thick paper to create iron brackets holding it all together. And glue the finished piece to the top of the wall. On with the painting. Once again, neat brown ink straight onto the timberwork. A grey base coat for the wall. Again, the same grey stonework as all of the rest of Undercrag City. As usual, this is just a test pot of cheap house paint. A light grey dry brush, fairly heavy. A pale yellow dry brush for the woodwork. White over everything. Brown ink again over the timber. Thin black wash over the stonework. Neat green ink. Quite a lot here, followed by yellow, This is sitting in the water and has been for a long time, so there would be a lot of moss and mould. The stone shouldn't look clean. Almost done. And pick out the ironwork in black, just like the wheel. Highlight with a bit of silver. I'll finish this off with a touch of rust ink, and the wheel is almost done. I hope you'll keep following. I'll be showing the installation of the wheel, the waterfall, and the crag. More details of the bridge I showed in my last video, the water for the river, and a lot more besides. Until then, bye for now.